Students, welcome to session 2 of sorting of materials into groups. Now this is a picture which shows the interconversion of states. Means what are the processes, what are the name of the processes of these states in which they get interconverted. Now if the solid is converted into liquid, the process is termed as fusion. When liquid state converts into gaseous state, it is termed as vaporization. When gaseous state is converted into solid, it is called as deposition. Right? So this can, or these three states of matter are interconvertible, but all the processes are not the same. They are termed differently. Now if liquid converts into solid, it is called as solidification. When solid converts into gaseous state, it is known as sublimation. And when gaseous state is converted into liquid state, it is called as condensation. So this is the picture or chart of interconversion of states. Now let us revise again the properties of matter. Yes, these are the three states of matter which we discussed, and these are some of the properties. So we will see in what way they are similar and in what way they are different. So we are discussing about the properties of matter, that is shape, volume and mass of solid, liquid and gas. So in solid, the shape is definite, volume is definite and mass is also definite. In liquid, liquid takes the shape of container, its volume is definite and its mass is also definite. In gas, gas takes the shape of the container, it occupies all the space available, but its mass is definite. So we can say that mass of all the three states of matter are definite. They are same, but they differ in volume. In volume, solid and liquid have a definite volume, but gas occupies all the space available. While in solid, shape is definite, while liquid and gas, they take the shape of the container. Okay, so this was all about matter, its three states and properties. So now let us move on to the properties of materials. Yes, students, there are different types of materials having different properties. We have to choose materials with the right properties for what we want to use it for. For example, a chalk which is made of wood or plastic would be of no use because it cannot use to write on the blackboard. So the differences in properties help us in grouping materials into different categories. So materials can be grouped on the basis of properties such as roughness, transparency, luster, solubility, flotation, etc. So the first property of material which we are going to discuss here is appearance or luster. Now just imagine, students, that if you collect some small pieces of different materials like paper, cardboard, wood, copper wire, chalk or aluminium sheet. Now do any of these appear shiny? We can separate the shiny materials into groups. So when we cut each material into two pieces, we can look at the freshly cut surface. What we can notice? Does the freshly cut surface of some of these materials appear shiny? Yes, some appear shiny, some do not. Means if we cut any material into two pieces, we can see that some appear shiny but some do not. Instead of cutting, we can rub the surface of material with sandpaper to see if it has luster or not. So the materials that have luster are called lustrous materials. That means how we can define it? That the surface of some objects shine when light falls on them, and these materials are said to have a luster and are called lustrous materials. Like metals, even the metallic surfaces generally show this type of property. So we can say that materials that have luster are usually metals. For example, iron, copper, aluminium, gold. So let me write it down for you. Examples are iron, copper, aluminium, gold. All these are examples of metals. They are lustrous materials. So there are some metals that often lose their shine and they appear dull because of the action of air on them. We therefore notice the luster only when they are only on their freshly cut surface. So whenever we visit an ironsmith or a workshop, we can look out for the freshly cut surfaces of metal rods to see if they have luster or not. So this is about lustrous material. Another thing which we can see about luster or appearance of metals is that if we hold a metal and if it is freshly cut, then we can see that shine is there. So we can say that these are lustrous. Even when we hold a mineral up to a light, it's luster that shines, the way light is reflected from it. Even we can see the reflection in that. So there are several kinds of luster. Most minerals have glassy luster or metallic luster. Even quartz has a vitreous luster, just like a drinking glass. Galena has a metallic luster, like metal wire. So sometimes we can use luster to identify minerals. This property of luster to identify minerals. Only certain minerals ever have a pearly, waxy or greasy luster. Even a diamond crystal has brilliantly shiny luster. So materials look different from each other. Materials that have luster are usually metals, but some metals lose their shine. So what do we call it as? Yes, the dull looking materials like paper, wood, plastic, cotton, rubber, etc., which do not have shine, are called non-lustrous materials. So the term luster refers to the general appearance of a mineral surface in reflected light. The main types of luster are metallic and non-metallic, or lustrous and non-lustrous. They are distinguished easily by the human eye after some practice, but the difference between them cannot be quantified and it is rather difficult to describe. So metallic refers to the luster of an untarnished metallic surface such as gold, silver, copper or steel, and these materials are opaque to light. So none of them passes through even at thin edges. So that was all about appearance and luster. Always remember that luster is the shine of a material. All metals in the pure state are shiny and they are said to possess luster. This property of metals is widely used for making jewelry and other decorative articles. So materials such as gold, silver, bronze, aluminium, iron have luster in them. Alright, so that was all about one property of material, appearance or luster. And the second property which we are going to study here is hardness. Yes, it's a very simple property to study. Like if we press the surface of an object like wood, steel or stone, etc., it is difficult to change its shape. Right? Yes. So all these materials and objects are said to be hard. Right? So always remember that if any material is very hard, or if the surface of an object like wood is very hard to press or very difficult to press, then that material is said to be hard. So there are materials which can be compressed or scratched easily. So what do we call it as? Yes, if we press foam, cotton, wool, etc., these objects change shape easily. So all such materials and objects are said to be soft. It is easier to cut soft materials but difficult to cut hard materials. Even there are some minerals which are harder than others. Like the hardness of a mineral is a good tool which we can use to help identify minerals. You will be very amazed to know that in 1812, a man named Frederick Moss invented a scale of hardness known as Mohs scale, obviously by his name, which is still used today. He selected 10 standard minerals and arranged them in order of increasing hardness. And then he came to know that talc is the softest one and diamond is the hardest. Each mineral can scratch on the toes below it on the scale. So we can easily test them for hardness. If we start with the softest standard mineral, that is talc, then what will happen? We can scrap the talc across the mineral we want to identify, and if it leaves a scratch, then the mineral is softer than talc, and if it doesn't, the mineral is harder than talc. So we can continue doing this with the hardest standard minerals like gypsum, calcite and so on. If for example our mineral can be scratched by fluoride but not by calcite, then it will have a hardness of about 3.5. So this you will study in the higher class. Right now I can say one thing, that when testing for hardness, people sometimes mistake the powder of the softer material for the scratch on a harder one. So whenever we test, or whenever you test, make sure that you brush away any powder before looking to see if there is a scratch. It is very important to remember not to test for hardness on a good surface of our mineral. Alright, so this is about the hardness and softness of any material. Now let us move on to other interesting property of material. Yes, texture. Now what does mean by texture? Yes students, the way the surface of an object feels on touching is called its texture. Some of them are smooth, whereas others are rough to touch. Let us see some of the examples. Yes, here are the list of examples, list of materials we have to divide it, or we have to drag it, or see that what are rough ones and what are smooth ones. So there is table, sand, paper, wood and paper. So out of these materials, sand, paper and wood are rough to touch, and table and paper are smooth to touch. So materials can be rough or they can be smooth. Like rough materials have bumps or ridges on their surface, which can be felt by touching them. But smooth materials lack these bumps. So examples of rough materials are rocks, sandpaper, bark of a tree. And examples of smooth materials which have smooth surfaces are flower petals, surface of an apple, a glass sheet, etc. So these are some of the examples. Even if we take some materials which can be scratched easily, they are very smooth, they are soft, they are smooth. So this is about the texture, whether they are rough or whether they are smooth, right? So this was about texture. Now let us move on to other property of material. Yes, other one is transparency. Now this term itself means something, but let us discuss about it. Yes, transparency is the property of materials by which they allow light to pass through them. Means we can see through it, we can see through those materials. So such materials through which light can pass are called transparent materials, like a drinking glass, a sellotape, which is also a transparent material, and this is also a glass. Even water is a transparent material, but when something is dissolved in it, it depends upon what we are dissolving in it, so it does not remain transparent, right? So substances through which things can be seen are transparent. Now why don't we use wood or metals to make window panes? This is because a glass window allows us to see the things outside, but we would not be able to see through a window which is made up of wood or iron. So that is why we use transparent material to make window panes so that we can see outside. So there are examples like glass, air, etc. They are transparent. But there are other materials too which are not transparent. So what do we call it? Yes, the materials like wood, metal, cardboard, etc. through which light cannot pass are called opaque materials. So wood, metals, etc. are opaque through which things or light cannot be seen. Through oily paper we cannot see, or we can see only partially, but they are categorized into different things. So remember that those materials through which we cannot see are called opaque, like metal container or wooden box. This is because wood and iron do not allow light to pass through them, while glass does. So we can say that these materials are called opaque materials. And the third one is about the materials through which light can pass partially are called translucent materials. For example, thin cloth, misty glass, oil spreads paper. You can see here in the picture itself. These are the materials through which light can pass partially. So these are called translucent materials. So remember, students, that through oily paper we can see only partially, and this is called translucent. Even there are combustible materials which are burned in the presence of air, and these materials are, or we can say that all metals, they are not transparent. So the materials through which objects can be seen but not clearly, only partially, are known as translucent. So remember always that materials that allow light to pass through them are called transparent materials, like glass, water, acrylic sheet, cellophane paper. That is why shopkeepers generally prefer to keep items like toffees, biscuits, sweets, etc. in transparent jars so that we can see them easily. And remember, materials like wood, metals, leaf, stone, cardboard that do not allow light to pass through them are called opaque materials. So this was all about transparency. So we studied a lot about properties of materials. In the next session, we will learn about other interesting properties of materials too. Till then, keep enjoying. Have a nice time. Thanks.